After leaving the imperial kitchen, I opened a tea house in Donglin County to make a living. A beggar came in and ordered 88 tables of banquet dishes from me. I smiled. Might I suggest ordering moderately? It's better for both the environment and your health. The beggar's eyes instantly reddened. I am just throwing a banquet to marry a wife. Do you look down on me? Later, the beggar's sweetheart backed out of the marriage, and I became his bride instead. When the county was ordered to investigate former dynasty criminals, I grabbed my bundle and fled overnight, only to collide head-on with that beggar while climbing over the wall. Seeing the gleaming imperial sword in the beggar's arms, I covered my eyes. So dazzling. Husband, what kind of person are you really? The beggar took out the imperial jade seal from my bundle and asked tremblingly, and you, wife, what kind of person are you? Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins. Before the previous dynasty fell, I was still an imperial chef in the royal kitchen. The rebels stormed the imperial palace, and as I fled for my life while gnawing on a spiced duck, I ran into the Empress Dowager halfway. She slipped the imperial jade seal under my spiced duck. Then she turned and ascended the grand hall, drawing her sword to take her own life. After a stunned moment, I immediately took off running like hell. Are you kidding me? It's not about my loyalty to the throne or patriotism. With regimes changing so frequently these days, whose empire this belongs to has absolutely nothing to do with a lowly errand runner like me. Okay, the main thing is if I'm captured by enemy forces and the imperial seal gets lost, I'll be lost too. To think that I, a mere cook who only knew how to prepare meals, fled the palace that day clutching a plate of spiced pressed duck. Yet felt like a loyal minister bearing the weight of a fallen kingdom. The new dynasty sent wave after wave of assassins to hunt me down, all to reclaim the imperial jade seal. For 3 years, across more than 1,000 days and nights, I slept with one eye open, standing guard even in slumber. After finally managing to hide my identity and escape to Lingnan, I opened a tea house in Donglin County, thinking peaceful days had at last arrived. The shop had barely opened when we encountered a troublemaking beggar. He demanded 88 banquet tables right off the bat. I was so shocked I nearly lost my footing. 88 tables. The imperial banquet doesn't make as big a show as you. Is begging really that profitable these days? This guy clearly wants a free meal, and a lavish one at that. Our humble establishment has limited space. Preparing 88 tables is truly impossible. I smiled. If it's just for you alone, sir. We'd recommend ordering moderately. It's eco-friendly and healthier. The beggar was genuinely good-looking, but his clothes were genuinely tattered. Hearing my words, he lowered his eyes, twisted the hem of his shirt riddled with holes, and stammered, "It's not just for me to eat, I'm getting married soon. Ordering these is perfectly normal. Do you look down on me?" I choked slightly, thinking to myself how accurately he guessed, and coughed awkwardly behind my hand. The beggar slowly lowered his head when he saw me like this. Tears welled up in his eyes, slowly swirling. I was stunned. No way, how could this guy start crying just like that? But then again, it's been ages since I've seen a man, and such a handsome one at that, cry. I understand what you mean, the beggar sniffled. My mother told me that beggars aren't allowed in tea houses or taverns. We'd dirty the shops of wealthy families. I forgot again. I'm sorry. I shouldn't bother the shopkeeper. I'll leave now, sorry, so sorry. By the last word, even the beggar's voice was trembling. Tears fell at just the right moment, tracing a line down his pale face before dripping off his chin with a soft patter onto the ground. My heart trembled, suddenly overwhelmed by an indescribable emotion spreading through me. Just as I thought to chase after him, the beggar had already covered his mouth and run far away. On the village path, only his lonely, frail figure remained. Swaying like a fragile willow branch, I bit into the freshly baked pancake, lost in thought. The hired waiter Hao Fan told me, that beggar is called Wang Sanchi, a simpleton picked up by widow Wang from Shanyang Slope. When he was first found, Wang Sanchi lay unconscious in bed. The villagers from all 4 townships and 8 villages around the county, seeing his delicate skin and tender flesh, thought he must be some young master from an official's family. But they waited several days without anyone coming to claim him, most likely abandoned by some wealthy household due to the frequent wars and hard times. Poor thing. Alas, I also let out a sigh. Hao Fan continued, that beggar Wang fell off a cliff and damaged his brain. Widow Wang borrowed from here and there just to treat his external injuries. Over the past 6 months, his spirits haven't improved much, but at least is able to get out of bed and work. He's quite capable, young and strong. He helps people with odd jobs in the mountains in the morning and goes begging in the county town in the afternoon. To repay the debts widow Wang incurred treating him, he's worn himself ragged, a good man, just cursed with misfortune. Now I didn't even feel like eating the pancake anymore. Hao Fan grew increasingly indignant as he spoke, nearly leaping up from his stool. Now that he's finally managed to get himself a wife and was thinking of settling down properly, that shopkeeper's words just now, that expression, it makes my heart ache just watching Wang Sanchi. Wang Sanchi really has it rough. Alright, that's enough. My face burned with shame as I recalled my earlier behavior. That's right. Wang Sanchi clearly had something wrong with his head. Though his words were truly shocking, I shouldn't have used such insulting manner to shut him up. As dusk faded and stars grew sparse in the deepening night, I stood on the tea house's second-floor corridor, enduring the cold wind all night long. Before dawn the next day, dark circles under my eyes, I quietly made my way to Shanyang Slope carrying 2 live chickens. I originally intended to apologize and make amends, but unexpectedly, before even reaching the Wang residence, I encountered Wang Sanchi engaged in a fight, or rather, being beaten up single-handedly. Wang Sanchi lay on the ground, gasping weakly for breath. 5 or 6 children surrounded him, laughing cruelly as they rained down punches and kicks upon him. What are you doing? I was startled. He threw down the live chicken and rushed forward, pulling away the children surrounding Wang Sanchi one by one. Damn your ancestors. Beating someone in broad daylight on the street, ganging up on the weak. Do you think just because this is a remote wilderness, no one can stop you? Hearing this, the 3 or 5 children ran off laughing. They hid behind a young man and woman, peeking out at me curiously. What's wrong with hitting him? He's just a stinking beggar. He deserves it. Yeah, exactly. I was about to step forward and argue properly when suddenly I heard a faint whimper from below. It hurts so much. I couldn't care less anymore. I crouched down. Wang Sanchi lay beneath the willow tree by the creek, his eyes half closed, breathing lightly. The few remaining tatters of cloth on him couldn't cover his wounds, bloodstains mixed with dust. He murmured cries of pain. My heart ached. My eyes moistened as I patted his back, comforting him with a few words. Turning my head, I looked at the woman in the green dress and said coldly, "Are you Fengji?" Before coming here, I'd heard from Hao Fan that the girl Wang Sanchi was marrying was his fellow villager Fengji, a full 8 years his senior. This girl had gained quite a reputation in the countryside for her improper behavior. As she grew older and feared she might never marry, she stripped naked one midnight and climbed over the Wang family's wall. Taking advantage of Wang Sanchi's simple-mindedness, she forced him to take responsibility for her. Wang Sanchi was truly dim-witted, unable to argue his way out of it. He gloomily agreed. But no sooner had their marriage been settled than this woman somehow attached herself to another man using her body, often amusing herself by humiliating poor Wang Sanchi. How despicable. TCH. Fengji curled her lips in a smirk and leaned into the arms of the pot-bellied man beside her. Who do you think you are? Standing up for a beggar? Can he give you rice or silver? Or perhaps you've also noticed this beggar's simple mind and brute strength, and have designs on his skills in bed. Fengji clutched her bleeding forehead. How dare you hit me? Hit you if I want to. Since when do I need to pick a date? I picked up another large stone from the ground and turned to look at the man standing beside Fengji, one at a time, or all together. Perhaps my expression was too ferocious, for the man actually staggered backward in fright. I looked at him disdainfully and snorted with contempt. Back when I worked in the imperial kitchens, I could cleave through ox bones thicker than thighs without hesitation and flip massive warks meant for feeding hundreds with ease. In terms of raw strength within the palace, aside from the imperial guard sweating it out on the training grounds, we chefs who wielded spatulas all day ranked second to none. Not to mention these 2 before me. Even if 3 or 5 more strong men came, I'd knock them out one punch each. Seeing he couldn't gain any advantage, the man cursed under his breath and turned to leave. Fengji wept bitterly. tears and mucus streaming down her face. She glanced at the retreating man, then turned back to glare at me viciously before stomping her foot and running away. I wasn't satisfied and was about to chase after him to fight. A muffled groan from below made me stop in my tracks. It hurts, The voice was thin and soft, like the mewl of an underdeveloped kitten. My heart instantly softened halfway. I quickly crouched down to check Wang Sanchi's condition. Are you alright? I hadn't seen clearly earlier, but now as I carefully lifted his clothes for a thorough examination, I realized Wang Sanchi not only had whip marks from willow branches on his body, but also a broken leg. I used the bone-setting techniques I'd honed during these years of fleeing for my life to help him. Wang Sanchi took a couple of tentative steps, breaking out in cold sweat from the pain. That fragile yet stubborn look of his was more than I could bear. I clicked my tongue in disapproval, gritting my teeth. I crouched down in front of him. Get on, how could I let you carry me? Wang Sanchi paused. You're a woman. I've carried pigs weighing over 300 jin. Could you possibly be heavier than a pig? Stop talking nonsense and get on. After hesitating several times, Wang Sanchi finally groped his way onto my back. Thank you, boss. Fortunately, he still remembered me. My heart warmed with comfort. But as I stood up, I nearly lost my grip from the weight pressing against my back. I let out a soft hiss. Who would have thought this Wang Sanchi, who looked like he didn't have an ounce of flesh on him, would be so heavy to carry? And probably from all the hard labor he'd been doing lately, his muscles were firm and tense, digging into my spine until it ached. Wang Sanchi struggled to get down again, so I gave him a light but firm slap on the butt. Wang Sanchi froze instantly. Though his body seemed to grow even more rigid, the breath against my ear was hot and damp. I sighed helplessly. No need to be nervous, just relax. The mountain path wound its way forward, flanked by lush foliage and the murmuring of a mountain stream. Ever since being hunted by Imperial forces 3 years ago, my days have been spent either fleeing for my life or scrambling to make ends meet, barely keeping my head above water. It suddenly struck me how long it had been since I last quietly appreciated scenery like this. As we walked, I casually asked Wang Sanchi, since Fengji treats you so poorly, why are you still determined to marry her? 88 banquet tables, how can a manual laborer like you possibly afford that? Wang Sanchi remained silent for a long while. He rested his head on my shoulder and muttered gloomily. If we tighten our belts on daily expenses and borrow a few months' rations from the landlords in advance, we can still afford it. My mother said we must never skimp on taking a wife. Once Fengji marries me, she'll be with me for life. Though I don't have much money, I still want to marry her with proper ceremony and fanfare. I'll work harder to give her a good life. Truly heartrending. I tugged at the corner of my mouth. Idiot, she deceived you. Did you know, Fengji? Why would she deceive me? Wang Sanchi probably didn't want to talk about that matter. He shifted slightly on my back before slowly saying, Fengji was lying beside me that night, without clothes, and I saw. Then what did you do to her? Did I need to do anything to her? His tone was so innocent when he said this. I could practically picture his puppy dog eyes glistening with moisture. I was utterly defeated by the fool's way of thinking, rolling my eyes silently. I resigned myself to fate and said, fine, go ahead and marry her then. When we escorted him home, the white-haired widow Wang was pacing anxiously back and forth in her earthen house, waiting impatiently. Perhaps this had happened many times before, seeing Wang Sanchi return completely unharmed this time. Widow Wang nearly knelt down and repeatedly thanked me. I declined her offer to stay for dinner. At dusk, Wang Sanchi stood waving in front of the earthen house, grinning broadly at me. His expression was earnest and radiant. I pursed my lips, feeling a sour taste in my heart. How foolish, so foolish that I almost pitied him. But the very next day, I ran into Wang Sanchi again, and that pity turned into mockery. Wang Sanchi handed me half a bag of copper coins and broken silver. I looked up at him and scoffed. You're really going to host 88 banquet tables to marry that so-called ghost Fengji? Wang Sanchi nodded emphatically. Me, you're something else. I gave him a thumbs up. The temple shouldn't enshrine Buddha, it should have you sitting up there instead. No need, I'm fine sitting here. Wang Sanchi wiped the bench clean and sat up straight. I've already borrowed 30 taels of silver from my employer. plus my savings over the years. I'm just 10 taels short now, boss. I came here today to discuss something with you. Can I owe you those last 10 taels? Once I earn the money. No, I blurted out instinctively. Are you kidding me? While pitifully handsome men do evoke sympathy, there's absolutely no room for negotiation when it comes to money. We don't offer credit here. Sorry. I had barely finished speaking when I looked up and met Wang Sanchi's misty eyes. Damn it, crying again. Always crying. I grabbed a handful of my hair. All right, I'll let you owe me. It's just 10 taels anyway. It's not like Wang Sanchi wouldn't pay me back. I comforted myself. Phut. Wang Sanchi finally broke into laughter through tears. He looked like an unworldly child, pure and harmless. So when Wang Sanchi offered to help me with chores in return for those 2 chickens yesterday, I agreed almost without thinking, waving my hand dismissively. Go. Who would have thought that just moments later, Hao Fan's heart-wrenching screams came from the kitchen. Holy shit. No way, bro. Are you muscle deficient? You can't even hold a stack of bowls without dropping them. I rushed into the kitchen. Wang Sanchi pushed himself up from the stove and turned to look at me. His sleeve knocked over the clay pot simmering with soup. With a loud crash, pottery shards flew everywhere. My vision went dark as I roared in frustration. Pay up. Wang Sanchi looked dazed. He took off his linen shirt stained with hot soup and silently wrung it dry. Sorry, boss. At home, my mother usually handles these chores. I'm used to rough work outside, so I'm not quite accustomed to this yet. Don't worry, boss, I'll pay for it. I was just about to ask what you could possibly offer as compensation, but the sight before me startled me instead. Wang Sanchi appeared thin, yet his upper body muscles were evenly toned and firm. Paired with that handsome face, he was indeed quite pleasing to the eye. What shocked me, however, was the savage sword wound, roughly 5 inches long, stretching diagonally from his left chest down to his waist. Yet swords were clearly weapons of the battlefield. Ordinary folks, especially those in this remote backwater of Donglin County, how could they possibly come into contact with such things? Recalling how fans mentioned that Wang Sanchi was picked up by chance by Widow Wang, I couldn't help but glance at Wang Sanchi's handsome face and, as if possessed, blurted out, "Who exactly are you?" Wang Sanchi blinked at me and replied, "BAA, anti-piracy notice. Xiaohu bot secures documents. For bookfinding bots, choose Xiaohu, reliable heavy checkmark hash and scam free." Hao Fan fawned over as he approached, saying, "Wang Sanchi, boss." His Wang Sand Chi. Hao Fan was about to continue. I was annoyed and pushed him away. Stop trying to be clever. I suspect Wang Sanchi isn't just some ordinary rich kid. Anyone connected to warfare inevitably gets entangled with the imperial court. And with the previous dynasty's imperial seal still in my possession, if Wang Sanchi truly is from the palace, could he be one of those hunting me down? Having merely lost his memory by chance, in that case, wouldn't I be walking straight into the lion's den? After 3 years on the run, I've grown somewhat paranoid, eyeing Wang Sanchi with increasing suspicion. These past few days, ever since returning from begging in the county town, Wang Sanchi would spend half an hour helping me at the tea house. From clumsy beginnings to growing proficiency, his work became increasingly efficient. I pretended to casually pass by his side. "Sanchi, you've scrubbed this bowl so clean. By the way, how did you get that scar on your body?" Wang Sanchi looked down at himself and shook his head. "Don't know, Sanchi. What did you do before coming to Donglin County?" "Don't know, I've forgotten." 37. Before he could finish speaking, Wang Sanchi shook his head innocently and said, "No idea." Suddenly, I grabbed a kitchen knife and swung it at Wang Sanchi's neck. No acting cute. Wang Sanchi bore sword wounds on his body, most likely a martial artist. I needed to test him. The blade narrowly grazed Wang Sanchi's neck. A thin cut instantly opened on Wang Sanchi's pale neck, blood seeping out steadily. His eyes were blank with innocence. After wiping away a handful of blood, he only stared at me tearfully in shock. I'm in pain, innkeeper." I quickly dropped the kitchen knife and pulled out the golden wound medicine I had prepared beforehand. There, hush now. Don't cry." After this incident, one thing became clear to me. Wang Sanchi was, without a doubt, a complete idiot. As I set my heart at ease, I looked at his pitiful, helpless appearance. and my sympathy began to quietly overflow. Hao Fan chimed in from the side. "Boss, you've never looked at me with such affectionate eyes." I shuddered and turned to stare at him. Hao Fan's lips trembled as he whined. "Boss, look, I can cry too. Boo-hoo-hoo, me, heh. You're like that toothless old man at the village entrance." Days passed one after another, and in the blink of an eye, it was already Wang Sanchi's wedding day. Many common folks in Donglin County held great affection for aspiring young men like Wang Sanchi, arriving uninvited in droves, carrying their own crops and eggs. They came to Shanyang Slope to join the feast, with cooking utensils, ingredients, Hao Fan, and several kitchen helpers in tow. I hired 2 horse-drawn carriages to prepare the banquet up the mountain, yet no one could have anticipated, on this very wedding day, Wang Sanchi's bride ran away. Wang Sanchi worked tirelessly, planning a wedding that had been nearly a month in the making only for it to become a complete joke. Today, Wang Sanchi wore a cyan green silk robe. He should have been radiant, marrying his bride in grand style. Yet reality was entirely the opposite. He looked nearly at a loss. The Feng family's tiled house stood empty, with even their belongings cleared out. Wang Sanchi searched inside and out repeatedly, unwilling to give up, calling out, Miss Feng, where are you?" No one answered. Most guests had walked up the mountain and were drenched in sweat from exhaustion. Now that they saw the bride had run away, realizing all their efforts would come to nothing, they couldn't help feeling rather embarrassed. The bride ran away on the wedding day. What kind of joke is this? Didn't this couple discuss things beforehand? Oh dear, 3 of my eggs got cracked on the way. What a wasted trip. This is just my rotten luck. Some even remarked, wait, this beggar's not right in the head. Did he stage this whole spectacle just to mess with us? These words were like pouring oil on the fire, instantly fanning the flames of skepticism. Some pitiful voices sympathizing with Wang Sanchi's abandonment were quickly drowned out by curses and accusations. Wang Sanchi opened his mouth, but his voice was drowned out by the clamor of the crowd. He fell silent, lowering her head. Her body trembled slightly. Hao Fan was pacing anxiously. What should I do? What should I do? Wang Sanchi, that guy, he really should have gone to check on the Feng family earlier. Now look what's happened. We're already at the wedding procession. And only now do we find out the bride has run off. I didn't make a sound, just stared fixedly at Wang Sanchi. In the crowd, Wang Sanchi hung his head low, his pallid face reflecting in my eyes, silently creeping into my heart. Suddenly, I don't understand at all. Wang Sanchi would do hard labor for survival, even casting aside his dignity to kneel and beg for food. Such a hard-working and ambitious young man. Why must he endure hardship time and again? Fengji ran away, and the villagers were still causing trouble. His efforts and rewards never seemed to balance out. Fate truly loves to torment those already suffering. Suddenly, he was reminded of his own tragic past again. I couldn't help but feel a sense of shared helplessness and sighed deeply. Stepping forward, I declared loudly, "Who said the bride ran away? The person Wang Sanchi is marrying is me, Shi-Ching." All eyes turned toward me. Hao Fan was stunned. Everyone exchanged glances. Shopkeeper. Isn't sacrificing this much for a single deal going a bit too far? Shopkeeper sure. Didn't you all say Wang Sanchi isn't right in the head? I declared. So, he remembered wrong. Today's bride isn't Fengji, it's me. The surroundings fell into stunned silence, everyone utterly bewildered, paying no mind. I snatched the red bridal veil from the servant's hands, draped it over my head, and plopped myself into the wedding sedan chair Wang Sanchi had personally crafted from bamboo. Move out. After what felt like ages, I heard Wang Sanchi's voice, trembling yet tinged with gratitude. We should take the bride back to her husband's home. From the Feng residence to the Wang residence, firecrackers crackled incessantly along the way. Sitting in the wedding sedan, I suddenly felt as if sitting on pins and needles, with thorns at my back and a lump in my throat. I began to regret it. Marriage is no child's play after all. I was simply too impulsive. But the words had already been spoken, and I couldn't very well leap down from the bridal sedan chair and say, I was only joking. That would likely have earned me even harsher scolding. Widow Wang, grateful that I'd salvaged the Wang family's reputation at Shanyang Slope, shed tears several times before the ancestral altar, clutching my hand fervently. she exclaimed. "My dear daughter-in-law, shopkeeper Sher, you're truly a great man. This old woman has no way to repay you. Let little Sanchi take care of you for the rest of her life as thanks for your kindness." Sob, "Take care of me for life." I forced a smile. "Don't curse me like that. After the wedding ceremony, what's done is done." I suddenly felt a reckless sort of relief. After instructing the kitchen help to prepare the wedding feast, I obediently played my role as a bride. Using the red bridal veil as an eye mask, I lay down and fell asleep in the tiny wedding chamber. I must say, getting married is truly exhausting. I really don't know how those brides who've just finished entertaining relatives and friends manage to sit properly in the bridal chamber waiting for their husbands to return. I can't stay up late at all. I don't know how long I slept when a cool touch brushed across my face. I raised my hand and slapped it away. Opening my eyes, I saw Wang Sanchi covering his flushed right cheek, biting his lip, gazing at me pitifully. Guilt instantly flooded over me. Sorry, been a fugitive for too long. Got a bit jumpy." Wang Sanchi was someone easily appeased. Hearing my apology, he obediently shook his head and said it was fine. Then he sat by the bed, casually helping me remove the red bridal veil while smoothing my disheveled hair. My heart fluttered slightly. Suddenly, impulsively, I asked, "Do I look good?" Wang Sanchi took a moment to process before understanding my meaning. Lowering his hand, he replied with utmost sincerity, "You do." My brain malfunctioned again. So is Fengji prettier or am I? The question was utterly meaningless, and I suspected I wasn't fully awake. But Wang Sanchi, true to his foolish nature, didn't find it strange at all. After pondering for a moment, he said, "You're prettier. Fengji is ugly." I laughed. I couldn't help but pat his face and say, "Young man, you sure know how to sweet talk. Such a smooth talker." Wang Sanchi suddenly pressed his lips together. He quietly swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The flickering red candlelight drew their two shadows closer, then pulled them apart. My fingertips still retained the warmth of Wang Sanchi's face. I curled my fingers slightly and averted my gaze. Wang Sanchi seemed to sense something amiss too, furrowing his brows. "Boss, is there anything I need to do?" "You little brat, no need." I stood up, fanning my face awkwardly in a vain attempt to dispel the heat rising to my cheeks. "I'll go stir-fry a couple of dishes. I'll cook." I looked at Wang Sanchi, raised an eyebrow. "Then you stir-fry." Wang Sanchi kept stir-frying that dish until the next morning. Actually, he didn't stir-fry for long after all. He'd been drinking with guests all night and only came to find me at marrow hour, 5 to 7 a.m. I chewed on the egg-fried rice he'd spent half a shichen, ancient Chinese time unit, approx. 2 hours, preparing, and began pondering over this absurd marriage. Before I could sort out my thoughts, Wang Sanchi said, "Innkeeper, you needn't worry about what comes after. You're my wife now. I'll earn money to support you and take care of you for life." I nearly choked to death on fried rice with eggs. "Thanks, but you really don't need to have such strong moral principles. I'm just being kind-hearted to help you out. After we're married, let's just carry on as usual, each living our own lives." "All right, that's right, each to their own. It was all just a twist of fate. Why must we entangle ourselves with each other?" I thought I was being broad-minded, but I failed to notice Wang Sanchi's unusually stubborn gaze, nor did I expect that a fool's way of thinking could truly be so peculiar. On the second day after our wedding, I moved back to the small courtyard behind the tea house. Yet Wang Sanchi suddenly stopped going to the county town to beg. When I asked him why, he hemmed and hawed for a long time, several times nearly turning to flee in agitation. I grabbed him and pulled him back. Wang Sanchi lowered his head, glanced at my hand holding his, and then said, "I don't want to embarrass the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper is the boss. If outsiders found out the shopkeeper married a beggar as her husband, they'd surely laugh at her. I don't want to make the shopkeeper feel ashamed." That day, I stood rooted to the spot for what felt like an eternity, suddenly realizing that the person who once claimed all that mattered was making money, who never had the concept of losing face, one day would also become hesitant and timid, fearing the gossip of others. And after losing his beggar's trade, Wang Sanchi had no choice but to pour all his effort into doing hard labor for others. In the past, he had at most helped gentry farmers harvest crops in the fields, but now he had gone to the hardest and most exhausting docks, 1 box of cargo earns 10 coins, carried from the cargo ship to the loading area, a journey of nearly 1 kilometer. Wang Sanchi could move 50 boxes in a single day. Many said Wang Sanchi was gambling with his life, all to support his family and fulfill his duty as a husband. Even Hao Fan often sighed, "That's how fools think, believing that once married, they must work hard to support the family and devote themselves wholeheartedly to their wives." Who knew this marriage was just a misunderstanding? Our boss merely had a momentary burst of kindness, but never took it seriously. Hao Fan wiped away his tears. Truly, the gentleman has affection, but the lady lacks intent. If even outsiders could see it, how could I not understand Wang Sanchi's thoughts? These days, no matter how busy or tired Wang Sanchi was, he would always bring me various little gifts, things like hairpins and peachwood combs. The items weren't expensive, but I suspected Wang Sanchi always timed his visits perfectly. He'd step into Donglin Tea House just before sunset. The afterglow of sunset fell behind, framing Wang Sanchi's radiant and composed smile. The scene was so beautiful that I found myself inexplicably at a loss. Apart from food and money, this was the first time something had stirred such feelings in me. And the other party was still a fool missing a screw. Suddenly I realized how utterly unreasonable emotions can be. I couldn't comprehend the stubbornness of a fool, yet when someone genuinely treats you with sincere devotion, warming you like blazing fire, it's truly impossible to pretend nothing happened. Before I even realized it, I seemed to have gradually grown accustomed to Wang Sanchi's presence around me. The sun had set long ago this day, until the last guest departed. Hao Fan lay on the bench yawning repeatedly, asking, "When are we closing?" Wang Sanchi still hadn't come. I looked out the window at the completely darkened sky and lowered my gaze. "Pack up your emotions and stand up. Let's go, no more waiting." Hao Fan stood up and suddenly said with a grin, "Innkeeper, you're not going anywhere." I turned my head, feeling a slight tightening somewhere in my heart. Wang Sanchi came running, panting, "Boss, my apologies, I'm late today." His eyes sparkled brightly in the darkness. "Today, I've repaid all the money I owed you. It's only been half a year since our nominal marriage, 20 taels of silver, plus the 10 taels he owed me, totaling 30 taels. That's 2 years' worth of expenses for an ordinary family." Yet Wang Sanchi managed to repay it all in just half a year, and he still had spare money to buy me little trinkets every day to make me happy. It truly confirmed what others had said. Wang Sanchi's money was earned by risking his life. His skin grew darker, his muscles more robust, fatigue was effortlessly concealed by him, leaving only joy when he saw me. I watched him walk toward me step by step, take my hand, and gently place a bag of silver coins in my palm. Then, atop the silver, he placed a box of rouge. I stared at that rouge for quite some time. From Lingxiang shop in the northern county, 3 taels and 5 mace per box. The other day when I passed by, I couldn't bring myself to buy it, yet now Wang Sanchi, who's far worse off than me, actually brought it back for me. "All my money is yours. Also, this rouge color would definitely suit you well." I flicked open the rouge lid and casually swiped a streak across my cheek. The application was careless. I knew it couldn't look good, yet I still asked Wang Sanchi, "Does it look nice?" Wang Sanchi stared dumbfounded, only managing to speak after a long pause. "You're beautiful, innkeeper, you're the most beautiful." After saying this, he smiled sincerely and radiantly. My heart stirred slightly as I looked up and called out to him, "Wang Sanchi." I asked, "Would you be willing to marry into my family?" Wang Sanchi's eyes instantly lit up. He didn't speak, standing still for a long time before carefully embracing me. "May I hug you, boss? You've already hugged me. Why ask now?" Wang Sanchi then said, "I could marry into your family. As long as I can be with you." I caught the scent of wind and frost clinging to him, and suddenly my heart softened a little. I was just about to attempt some sweet nothings, never my strong suit. But then there was someone utterly ruining the moment beside us. "Will someone please think of me? It's late at night, stop torturing this single dog." I picked up that bag of silver and tossed it into Hao Fan's arms. Hao Fan grinned until his eyes narrowed into slits. Remembering to close the door behind him as he left, a night of springtime pleasures, wouldn't want to interrupt. I brought Widow Wang into the county town with me. Wang Sanchi cheerfully moved into my residence. On the day he arrived, he initially intended to carry his backpack into the side room, but froze in place when I asked him a question. Husband and wife should share the same bed, not just sharing a bed, but also doing countless things together. Wang Sanchi asked, "What do you want to do?" I smiled without answering. That night, I took Wang Sanchi's hand and guided it downward. Wang Sanchi's fingers trembled along with his entire body, his breathing chaotic, his cheeks flushed crimson with suppressed emotion. I taught with single-minded devotion. Utterly focused, he tilted his head back and exhaled, unable to utter a word, only managing to cry out hoarsely and incoherently, "Shopkeeper, shopkeeper." I stopped and pretended to be displeased. "Don't call me shopkeeper." Wang Sanchi wanted to make a move. I pressed his hand and smiled. "Call me wife." The room fell silent, save for Wang Sanchi's slightly heavy breathing. After a long while, a faint whisper of "darling" reached my ears. My mood instantly lifted as I placed my hand back on him, softly responding, "Yes, my husband." Perhaps it was my imagination. But Wang Sanchi seemed to tremble slightly. In the latter half of the night, Wang Sanchi gradually figured things out, or perhaps men are just naturally gifted in this regard, fools being no exception. In any case, the commotion in the room gradually subsided. I opened my sweat-drenched eyes to find the sky outside already paling with dawn. Hao Fan passed through the tea-house's back door and called out to me from the courtyard beyond, "Boss, how come you're sleeping so late today? Are we opening the shop or not?" When I tried to speak, I realized my throat was parched beyond words. Not a single syllable would come out. Wang Sanchi handed me a glass of water with concern, calling out to the outside, "Closed for today, we're not opening." Suddenly, silence fell outside. Then the sound of tap-tap-tap footsteps gradually faded away, followed by Hao Fan's horrified voice, "Indulging in lust in broad daylight, shameless. What does making love in broad daylight mean?" Wang Sanchi stared at my face. I smiled and said, "It's nothing, not just during the day, we do it at night too." Wang Sanchi carefully wiped me down with hot water. My eyelids grew heavy, and I drifted into a deep sleep. Ever since we started living together, I stopped letting Wang Sanchi work as a dock porter. That job was too harsh and exhausting. Every time I saw the wounds on Wang Sanchi's palms, my heart ached unbearably. So Wang Sanchi focused on working at the tea house, handling lighter tasks like cleaning and stocking. Diligent and capable, he begged me to teach him several dishes, and now he's practically half a cook. I teased him, a man who's presentable in the parlor and handy in the kitchen. Wang Sanchi, with stains on his palms, hugged me tightly with his clean arm. "My dear, I'm also capable in the bedroom." I raised an eyebrow. Well, someone's finally catching on, though perhaps he's caught on a bit too much. Speaking of this matter, I still feel somewhat depressed. Perhaps it's because my mind isn't sharp. The less I think, the more I end up doing, tormented day after day. I've now even lost the courage to climb onto my bed. Wang Sanchi's moist eyes stared at me innocently, unable to bring myself to scold him. I could only shut my eyes tight to avoid looking, frustration simmering in my chest. One night I was nearly exhausted. In a fit of frustration, I pointed at the wasteland outside. "If you've got so much energy, why don't you go finish clearing that land?" Wang Sanchi blinked. The next day after closing shop, Wang Sanchi actually picked up a hoe and started tilling the earth. He kept digging until dusk began to fall before returning indoors to shower. Lying on the bed, his gaze at me was somewhat distant and resentful. In the end, he merely kissed me, gathered me close, and we slept. The corners of my lips curled upward. I was satisfied. Day after day, Wang Sanchi soon cleared 7 or 8 tenths of the wasteland in the backyard. Rows of neatly arranged furrows stretched before me, the freshly turned moist soil now planted with soybean sprouts and cauliflower seeds, presenting a most pleasing sight. I went to inspect the results in the backyard. After walking a full circle, I was about to return indoors, when suddenly the ground gave way beneath my feet. Realizing the backyard had been dug into a pond, icy water had already swallowed me from all sides. Soon, my throat convulsed with coughing, choked screams trapped in my windpipe. Panic gradually took hold of me. Vision darkened as a chaotic reel of memories began flashing before my eyes. The last image in my mind was Wang Sanchi's face, grinning foolishly at me. Suddenly, I really didn't want to die. 15. When I opened my eyes again, a group of cooks and servants from the shop were gathered around me in unison. Hao Fan sprang up and shouted, "Boss! You're finally awake. 3 days. You're finally awake. Heaven be praised. Heaven be praised." At this point, Hao Fan suddenly pursed his lips. "It's just Wang Sanchi. Woo. I grabbed Hao Fan's sleeve. "What happened to him?" "Wang Sanchi fell into a coma while saving me. He lay on the bed. His face unusually pale, his eyes tightly shut. The doctor said, water entered his brain, causing trauma. He might wake up tomorrow, or he might never wake up." I stood frozen for a long time. Suddenly I suspected that it wasn't just Wang Sanchi who was traumatized, I was too, because I couldn't comprehend the meaning of forever. I could only equate it with one tomorrow after another. I think I'll keep waiting for Wang Sanchi, in all the tomorrows I can reach. 16. Winter passed and spring returned once more. I spent the new year alone again. Wang Sanchi still hadn't woken. Today at sunset, after feeding Wang Sanchi his gruel, I pressed a pouch of silver ingots into Hao Fan's hands and picked up my traveling bundle. "Boss, are you really leaving?" I nodded. "Amham. Why?" Hao Fan's eyes welled up with tears as she tugged at my sleeve. "What will happen to Donglin Tea House? And what about Wang Sanchi?" "Use the money I gave you to hire someone to look after Wang Sanchi for now. I'll come back to get him when I have time. As for the tea house," my mind was in turmoil as I turned away. "Handle it as you see fit." Shopkeeper, Little Tiger Bot document anti-theft seal. Find a book bot, choose Little Tiger, stable and reliable, no pitfalls, immersive translate. I quickened my pace without stopping. Fleeing had become second nature to me, and this time it had been a full year before I received news of the Imperial pursuit. To have enjoyed such a long period of peace was already a stroke of luck amidst misfortune. To avoid implicating Wang Sanchi, I had to flee, but also leave behind some traces along the way to divert attention and protect the Eastwood Tea House. After leaving the tea house, I hired a few escorts at the security bureau and stayed there overnight. In the dead of night, I suddenly heard faint footsteps outside the window. I woke instantly, my back drenched in cold sweat. The armed escort, his dry warmth seeping into my palm, about the Imperial seal matter. I only learned of it from the soldiers after I woke up and regained my memories. Everything I've said and done before, all my words and deeds towards you, have been with absolute sincerity. My lady, please believe me. Under the moonlight, Duan Ling's expression was earnest and clear. His coaxing comforted me greatly, filling my heart with warmth. Yet I still said, "All glib talk. Is this all the nonsense you remember after regaining your memory?" Even as she said this, the corners of her lips couldn't help curling upward. Duan Ling watched me for a moment, then suddenly, he tilted his head and pressed a kiss to my lips. The soldiers standing by the wall all lowered their heads in unison. "What do we need those escorts for?" Duan Ling pulled me into his embrace, his tone tinged with dissatisfaction. "Now, I can protect you myself." Duan Ling settled me in a secluded cottage in the countryside. The surrounding woods were lush and dense, concealing countless elite shadow guards within their depths. Afterwards, he secretly killed the commander of the Northwest Army and took control of its forces. He then contacted remnants of the previous dynasty and began plotting a change in imperial power. I didn't pay much attention. Such matters had little to do with common folk like us. The only thing was, outsiders couldn't enter this rural cottage, and I couldn't leave either, feeling that staying like this would eventually drive me mad with boredom. When I finally got to see Duan Ling again, I clamored for him to bring me some living creature. "Duan Lin, Wang Sanchi, if you don't entertain me soon, I'll die of boredom in this godforsaken wilderness." Duan Lin asked, "What kind of living creature do you want?" "Hao Fan. He spends the most time with me and gets along with me best." Duan Lin's face instantly darkened like the bottom of a burnt pot. I came to my senses and quickly tried to make amends. "Of course, that was before. After meeting you, no one's ever matched me better than you." Duan Ling's expression remained gentle and innocent, yet a shadow flickered deep in his eyes. "Is that so?" he asked quietly. That very night, Duan Lin pinned me down on the bed, proving several times just how compatible we were. Yet afterward, there were still no living creatures delivered to me. Instead, Duan Lin's own visits increased dramatically. Under the pretense of keeping me company to relieve my boredom, I've truly lifted a rock only to drop it on my own foot asking for trouble myself. When I locked the front door, Duan Lin climbed in through the window. When I sealed the windows shut, Duan Lin learned to dig tunnels. Logically speaking, tunneling his way inside should have been impossible. But by midnight I couldn't take it anymore and opened the door to let him in. His digging was so loud I couldn't sleep. The willow trees by the river gradually turned emerald green. On the first day of spring's arrival, Duan Lin bid me farewell. I'll be away for a few days. I expressed my understanding. He quietly let out a sigh of relief. All right, have a safe journey. Duan Ling looked at me with grievance and said, Wife, aren't you going to ask when I'll return? I won't ask. I know you'll come back no matter what. Knowing you'll return, there's no need to ask more. Duan Ling sighed softly and embraced me gently. Wait for me, my love. The Northwestern Army rebelled, marching straight toward the capital. In May, news arrived from the capital. Young Marquis Duan seized control of the Imperial Guards, and the Emperor was slain before the throne. The fifth prince, Li Kuei, ascended with the Imperial seal, proclaiming a new era as Yong. Yet among the people, opinions were sharply divided. Some praised, others condemned. Even in this godforsaken eastern Lingnan region, there were no shortage of people recklessly discussing court affairs and slandering Duan Lin's loyalty. Though I knew this move wouldn't affect the greater situation, I simply couldn't stomach how those around me were spreading such malicious rumors about Duan Lin. It truly made me furious. I hired people to spread word of how the former emperor persecuted Duan family's loyal officials and allowed treacherous factions to ruin the state, then made Donglin tea house's stance crystal clear. Those who publicly praise Duan Lin in the marketplace and whose words reach my ears shall enjoy a 20% discount at the tea house, with an additional complimentary bowl of mung bean sweet soup. Overnight, the tea house's business flourished like wildfire. Public opinion also shifted its course, almost entirely favoring the new dynasty. I was pleased. Patrons continued to sing praises of Duan Lin's great achievements. Lying in my rocking chair, waving a palm leaf fan, I listened to their words as if they were delightful tunes. Yet no one could have anticipated, in this year's midsummer, that treacherous rebel who was loyal to his sovereign and devoted to his country actually traversed the entire Great Yong dynasty, traveling thousands of miles to arrive at the Eastview Tea House. I knew Duan Ling would return, but I never imagined his return would be so brazen. 18 golden imperial carriages, escorted by fire-maned steeds, Duan Ling stood atop the lead horse clad in crimson robes, the breeze tousling his temples, exuberant and unrestrained. He rode with the arrogance of a triumphant general returning victorious. The common folk were utterly shocked. They whispered among themselves, murmuring, "Isn't that the beggar from Widow Wang's household? How did he become a general? Oh, don't you know, this young Marquis Duan Ling was framed by that old emperor of the previous dynasty. He hid himself in Donglin Tea House, submitting himself as an apprentice under shopkeeper Shi. This is what they call enduring hardships to accomplish one's ambition, weeping blood while sleeping on weapons." I gazed at Duan Ling's majestic appearance. What a pretentious display. And where has my dear Wang Sanchi gone? Duan Ling dismounted from his horse with practiced ease. I placed my hand atop his head and stroked along his fur. Good boy. The onlooking crowd. What good boy? Is shopkeeper Shi calling for a dog? Duan Ling promptly crouched down without hesitation. Yes, the common folk remarked. Ah, this must be marital playfulness. I lifted my gaze to look at Duan Ling for a moment, then asked him with a smile, General, you've returned with such grandeur today. Have you come to propose to this humble maiden? Duan Ling also smiled, shaking his head as he replied, No, I've come to be a live-in son-in-law. My lady, would you be willing to take me in? It's not that it can't be done, I said, but I simply can't bear a marriage with such an immense gap, always longing yet never able to see or touch. It's utterly agonizing. Well, that works out perfectly, Duan Ling said with an expression begging for praise. I've already submitted my resignation to His Majesty. From now on, I'll stay peacefully in Donglin, accompanying my wife every single moment. The surroundings fell silent for a while before the murmurs gradually faded away. Someone began to clap, leading the applause. All right, marry him, marry him. The summer sun blazed fiercely. I squinted my eyes and tilted my head with a smile. Amidst the blessings of the Donglin townsfolk, I held Duan Ling's hand as we walked toward the tea house. Now the realm is at peace, tranquil as calm seas and clear rivers. All I wish for is to stay with Duan Ling, one home, one chamber, one couple, forever and ever. The end.